Since our last closer look 4 days ago, the president's head of fundraising, Kimberly Guilfoyle, who's also Donald Trump Jr.'s girlfriend, was accused of showing pics from romantic partners and fans to an assistant at Fox News. And then the First Lady was caught on tape delivering a profanity-laced tirade about migrant children and basically saying Christmas, and none of it mattered. We couldn't even have one day enjoying those stories because immediately after that, the president, a.k.a. the Grinch who stole Christmas, and a bunch of high-ranking Republican officials tested positive for coronavirus, effectively hobbling the U.S. government, putting untold numbers of people at risk. And then on Sunday, after several days of brazen lying about the situation from the White House, the president took a joyride in his motorcade while he was still infectious, infuriating medical experts and Secret Service agents. But hey, at least it's November, right? Oh, it's October. October what? 5th? You mean like the 5th week of October? 5 days? Oh boy. I better drink this Red Bull to stay awake. I'm just kidding. I can't sleep. It's time for a closer look. We are 7 months into a pandemic that has killed 210,000 Americans and infected more than 7 million. On Friday, we recorded over 50,000 new cases, the most since mid-August, while only 3 states saw declines. And there were 30,000 Americans hospitalized with COVID-19, among them the President of the United States. But don't worry, the President reassured us all in a message from his hospital suite that this has been a very educational experience for him.
We have enthusiasm like probably nobody's ever had. Our people that love the job we're doing, we have more enthusiasm than maybe anybody. So it's been a very interesting journey. I learned a lot about COVID. I learned it by really going to school. This is the real school. This isn't the let's read the book school. And I get it, and I understand it.
First of all, let's read the book school is just school. That's what school is. It's like calling it a let's eat the food restaurant or a let's do the exercise gym. Second, now you've learned a lot about COVID. Maybe you could have looked into it a little bit before you and 7 million other Americans got it. You can learn to cross the street safely without getting hit by a bus for it. You're like a dude in a full body cast saying, great news, I learned a lot about don't walk signs. This is a deadly disease, and you sound like a retiree posting Facebook photos from your trip to the Caribbean. It's been an interesting journey. We tried mahi-mahi and learned how to dance the merengue. If only there was a way to learn about this deadly and highly infectious disease without getting it. Fauci, why didn't you tell me this thing was so bad? Oh, you shouldn't touch your face, Fauci. I learned that the only way you can, by catching COVID. I'm basically a doctor now. We're colleagues, Fauci. You're my best friend. Also, what do you mean this is the real school? You sound like a divorced dad taking his 12-year-old to the OTB. All right, this isn't let's read the book school. This is where you learn about real life. Now, when you go in, remember, but it all on old 3 legs. What's that? No, Daddy can't come in with you. Yeah, it does have to do with a picture of my driver's license on the back wall. It's hard to explain. You know that kite you fly in the backyard? Well, Daddy did that with some checks. And then shortly after that, Trump staged a shockingly reckless photo op when he left the hospital, still infectious with a deadly virus, and made a security detail driving past a throng of supporters in his motorcade. Nothing projects strength like waving from the backseat of an SUV like a kid headed for soccer practice. Smart move, keeping your juice box between your knees. So when you said you learned about COVID, did you mean you learned how to spread it? Surprised he didn't jump out of the SUV and crowd surf. Seriously, you're in an enclosed space with other people. What's next? Are you going to cough on the Girl Scouts who sold the most cookies in a Walter Reed elevator? This image captures all the heedless negligence and disregard for human life that has characterized the Trump administration and its response to the pandemic. He exposed Secret Service agents, among others, to a deadly virus just for a quick ego boost. Doctors and Secret Service agents were aghast at the spectacle. So what prompted this reckless jaunt that put people in harm's way? According to the Washington Post, Trump told advisors on Sunday he was getting bored being in the hospital and was tiring of watching coverage of his hospitalization. Oh, you were bored. Well, that must be nice. Meanwhile, the rest of us stop, drop, and roll every time a CNN alert pops up on our phones. Bored? Your hospital suite is basically a luxury apartment. And I hate to point this out, but that room and your top-of-the-line medical care probably costs more than the $750 you paid in taxes. You know what? $750 normally gets you in a hospital. 3 Tylenol. 3 regular strength Tylenol. So not only are we paying for your top-of-the-line medical care, but you're also missing work. I mean, did you even sign that blank piece of paper like we asked you? Oh, okay, well, you did. Okay, that's my bad. That's my bad. Thank you. We needed that right away. I mean, these people don't even know how to fake work. We should put out a photo showing he's hard at work. Oh, good idea. What would that be? I don't know. This is crazy, but maybe signing a blank piece of paper. Does the president do that? president. He looks like he should have a booth at Comic-Con. By the way, while all this is happening, there's still a presidential election less than a month away. In fact, I can't believe this is the case, but as we speak, the president, the entirety of the institutional Republican Party, and its vast legal apparatus are desperately trying to disrupt and undermine an election that's happening in less than 30 days. And it's like the, eighth biggest story in the news right now? A prehistoric sea monster could awaken from a 1,000-year slumber and rampage through Manhattan. It would be relegated to page 12 of the real estate section. Absolutely insane, shocking, eye-popping quotes show up in the news all the time now, and we just flip past them like we're browsing through paint swatches at Home Depot. For example, the AP reported that Trump and the GOP are attacking voting rules across the country, and buried in that story was this quote from a GOP lawyer who led George Bush's legal team in the 2000 Florida recount. It's clearly based on an overall strategy to disrupt the election as much as possible. You're really seeing a broad-based, generalized strategy to suppress the vote by the Republican Party. Okay, well, that sucks. Too bad, I guess. It'd be great to spend some more time on that, but CNN just reported that our infectious president is at the U.S. Mint licking the nickels. I want him to have that nice Corona sheen. But there's a common thread here between Trump's denial of reality when it comes to COVID and his denial of reality when it comes to voting. The GOP's attempt to disrupt the election is based on the lie that mail voting leads to fraud. At last week's presidential debate, Trump said ballots were being dumped in creeks and rivers, despite the fact that obviously no such thing is happening. And on Thursday, White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany, who today also tested positive, held a maskless indoor press briefing where she tried to defend the comment about rivers in a clip that sadly was overshadowed by the rest of the news because it's one of my favorite exchanges from the Trump era.
The other day he said they found a lot of ballots in a river. Who is they that found those ballots, and where is this river anywhere in this country?
The local authorities. It was a ditch in Wisconsin that they were found, and I can get the article to your inbox if you'd like. And you're missing the forest for the trees here. The point is,
No, I cover the news, and I like to report accurately in the news. And when the president says they found a lot of ballots in a river, I simply want to know where the river is.
there used to be
Where's
curiosity. In fact,
the
the
river?
Washington Post said mail-in voting is not ready to scale up in the middle of a pandemic. Now there's no journalistic curiosity when we're finding you in 100,000
I'm asking you where the river is, and you can't give an
were sent out in
if you
Brooklyn.
say the
They
president
were
meant a
inaccurate
ditch,
ballots, and then
then say he meant a
100,000
ditch.
more.
I just want to know where the river is.
Filibustering and lack of journalistic curiosity.
I'm very curious. Where's the river?
Yes.
Incredible. The president and his aides are so deranged that for reporters to just inquire about basic facts sounds like an argument between Lewis and Clark if they were lost. Where's the river, Lewis? I'm looking. Is there a river or not? Clark, it is very hard to do this with you badgering me. There it is. No. Oh, that's a ditch. Lewis! Which brings us, that's how they talked. Brings us to the common through line from the mail ballot story to the White House COVID cluster, which now includes several cases that can apparently be traced back to the Rose Garden ceremony announcing the nomination of Amy Coney Barrett to the Supreme Court. An event at which attendees were seen hugging and talking in close proximity, and at which there were even indoor events without masks or social distancing. If there was an epidemic of bear attacks, these people would be running around in the woods wearing scarves made of sausage links. The reason they were rushing to have this super spreader gala in the first place was so they could get their conservative supermajority on the court in time for the election Trump is trying to undermine, and for a Supreme Court case in November in which Trump is trying to destroy Obamacare and rip healthcare away from millions amid a pandemic, including those with pre-existing conditions, among them the 7 million Americans who have now been infected with COVID. And in doing so, they ended up getting sick themselves. This were one of Aesop's fables. Even Aesop would be like, do I really need to spell it out to you guys? They're also brazen in their lack of empathy. Again, I can't believe I have to explain this, but it's not just about you. Even if you don't care about your own health, you can get other people sick. For example, Wisconsin. Senator Ron Johnson took a COVID test on Friday and then, while he was waiting for his results, went to a political event anyway.
Senator Ron Johnson also announcing he is tested positive for coronavirus. He says he learned he was positive after attending a fundraiser last night. Senator Ron Johnson says he took a COVID test Friday in Oshkosh as he was headed to an Ozaukee County event. The senator says he was socially distant at the fundraiser and had a mask on except when he was speaking.
What do you mean you had a mask on except when speaking? You were addressing a crowd indoors. That's like only taking the safety off the gun when it's your turn on the trampoline. You should have been self-isolating, but instead you were at an Oktoberfest dinner. You're the worst. Danke. Shane. Shoemaker, I give that joke a 9 out of 10. The attempt to undermine the election, the Rose Garden super spreader gala, the constant lying about everything. In a way, it's all one story. That's maybe the most bewildering fact of life in the Trump era. Every day there's a shocking new thing you could never have imagined in your wildest dreams, and yet at the same time, every Trump story is basically the same Trump story. We can't believe a word the president or his aides say. We have no idea what to believe. It's the Sharpie map over and over again. If Trump was your local meteorologist, you'd have to leave the house every day with shorts, a raincoat, tank top, a sweater, snow boots, sunglasses, and an umbrella, assuming that is, you know how to use it. They're inveterate liars. They can't help themselves, and they're also really bad at it. Seriously, what's more troubling, that they lie all the time or that they lie all the time and have shown no improvement in lying? It's like sending your kid to math camp for a week, and when they come back, they tell you it was the toughest 9 days of their life. Think of all the people put in danger by this reckless behavior. Trump's getting the best medical care anywhere in the world, as are the Republican senators and officials who presumably have excellent health insurance. But what about the powerless people whose names you will never hear, who might have also been exposed? Just like Ron Johnson, Trump also continued traveling after the White House knew that Hope Hicks had tested positive on Thursday and that Trump had potentially been exposed. In fact, we now know from the Wall Street Journal that Trump had already gotten his positive test result back when he called into Sean Hannity's show on Thursday and said this.
So she did test positive. I just heard about this. And I just went out with a test. I'll see what, because we spent a lot of time, and the First Lady just went out with a test also. So whether we quarantine or whether we have it, I don't know. So I just went for a test, and we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows?
You knew. Again, he's such a bad liar. He's like a burnout teen who gets caught with weed. Donald, is this pot in your bag? Who knows? Let me smoke it. Should we smoke it? See what happens? Also, poor Hannity. He thinks he's your best bud, and you won't even confide in him. He's going to be devastated when he finds out you lied. Don't be surprised if he shows up outside your hospital room, say anything style. In fact, the Wall Street Journal reports that there was a culture of secrecy and an attempt to cover up any positive test results in the White House rather than inform the public as the virus spread among the people closest to him. Mr. Trump also asked one advisor not to disclose results of their own positive test. Don't tell anyone, Mr. Trump said. My God, man, haven't you ever seen a zombie movie? That never works. You try to cover up a zombie bite, and then the next thing you know, your eyes are bloodshot, color's gone from your face, and you're yelling about Joe Biden taking Adderall on Fox and Friends. Rudy, when did you get bit? 1985. I got bit by a rat, a bat, a zombie, and a potato. New York was different then. And then this afternoon, Trump announced that he'd be leaving the hospital and then used it once again as an occasion to downplay the severity of the virus.
The president says that he is going to be leaving the hospital. This is what he just tweeted. I will be leaving the Great Walter Reed Medical Center today at 6:30 p.m. Feeling really good, he said. Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life. We have developed under the Trump administration some really great drugs and knowledge. I feel better than I did 20 years ago.
Remember, he might get better from COVID, but he will never get better as a person. I mean, of course, you can say, don't be afraid of COVID. You have the best taxpayer-funded medical care in the world. It's easy to say, don't be afraid to jump out of this plane when you're the only one with a parachute. For 7 months, the president denied reality and said the virus would magically disappear. The cases would go down to zero, that we were turning a corner, and then he was hospitalized with the disease himself after having potentially exposed lots of other people. Also, he and his allies could rush to get a conservative supermajority on the Supreme Court to help them steal the election and destroy Obamacare. Trump has been comfortably ensconced in one of the best medical facilities in the world, while he and his allies try to rip health care away from millions. After months of denying reality, forcing workers back to unsafe jobs, and pushing teachers and students back to...
Let's read the book school.
This has been A Closer Look. God's Love We Deliver cooks and brings over 2 million meals a year to men, women, and children living with HIV, AIDS, cancer, and other serious illnesses, and they need your help now more than ever. If you're watching this online, you can hit the donate button. Stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask. We love you.